We've all had those moments when we're shooting around and we pretend it's the final seconds of a game and take a shot like it's the game-winning buzzer beater. There's something about those last-second shots in basketball that we all can appreciate. I mean, we remember MJ with his last shot versus the Utah Jazz, right? You've seen the clips of Dame Dollar. Of course, we all remember Kawhi's suspenseful bounce buzzer beater, not to mention all of Luka's buzzer beaters. There have been countless buzzer beaters in NBA history. It's the moment that captures almost everything we love about sports. The unpredictability, the raw outbursts of emotion from a made basket or failed execution. The adulation or desolation that grips us just from watching a game is just madness. Buzzer beaters, especially in the playoffs, are powerful forces of nature. We have our own tastes in choosing what buzzer beaters to remember, either because of the level of difficulty or because of what was at stake. But along with all that, some of these shots are just more emblematic of how tight the game was. And though for a moment iconic, it's not necessarily that impactful to the bigger picture or the game itself. In this video, we'll visit some of the most insanely difficult and unforgettable playoff buzzer beaters that we all may have forgotten and are worth revisiting, so let's take a look at them now. Let's start with the most recent, shall we? Actually, I wanted to start with this amazing shot since this one really got me pondering about this rundown anyway. The Maxey Logo 3 to send the game to overtime. To give justice to the actual moments, this shot was actually after he made a 4-point play with less than 30 seconds left in the fourth quarter. That's basically 7 points, give or take in just 17 seconds. First off, that's a big shot and takes a lot of confidence to even get that shot off. And if there's a moment to be convinced that Philadelphia already has its second star, this is that moment. On the flip side, though, you could just imagine how gut-wrenching this is for the Knicks. This was like the Reggie Miller 8 points in 9 seconds and the inverted Larry Johnson 4-point play rolled into one. Thankfully for the Knicks, though, this series wasn't as exciting as that shot, and they ended this series effectively the next game. Speaking of exciting, or not as exciting as it supposedly should be, how about that Derek White tip-in off of Marcus Smart's missed shot, with less than a second to go back in the 2023 Eastern Conference Finals? White curled straight to the rim for a tip-in to send the series back to Boston for a Game 7. That shot was as exhilarating, and the stakes of this game have never been higher, since Boston was literally coming back from an 0-3 deficit, giving themselves a chance to be the first team to complete a series win after being down 3-0. This shot would have made the annals of NBA playoff history and probably still should, but it also may not. Since the Celtics never showed up in Game 7 on their home floor after Jason Tatum got injured in the opening moments of the game, instead of giving NBA fans an iconic never giving up till the final buzzer moment, it somewhat became a reminder of how close the Boston Celtics have been for years, yet never really had the oomph to get the job done. Let's have more near-the-rim action, shall we? How about a thunderous one this time? Of course, I'm talking about DeAndre Ayton's dunk versus the Clippers back in the 2021 Western Conference Finals. Ah, what a wonderful time that was for Suns fans, right? A run straight to the finals, spearheaded by the purest of killers in Devin Booker, steered by the steady hands of the point guard and fortified by a young center whose genes came from Hercules himself. This dunk would have made all the Suns highlights for years to come if they actually won. Instead, it doesn't get much shine since all we think of DeAndre Ayton is what a waste of talent. All those physical gifts paired with a dexterity that could have dominated any center in the league. Instead, all we consistently get are a variety of boring spins and hooks, jab steps and mid-rangers, and lousy energy on defense. Ayton could have been a real thing, and much more than just the meme he has become as of late. To make this highlight even more forgettable amongst all the clutch moments in the 2021 playoffs, Jrue Holiday took the ball out of D-Book's hands and then hammered the final nail in the Suns' coffin with the alley-oop to Giannis in Game 5. So yeah, kinda not that hard to forget. You know what? Let's have some more high-octane near-the-rim action with Jimmy Butler's tip-in to send the game to overtime versus the Bucks in the first game of the first round of the 2023 playoffs. This one's really tricky because it checks most boxes for what makes a memorable buzzer beater. the level of difficulty, a spicy rivalry, and this shot also started an improbable run for the Heat straight to the finals. I don't know if it's because it's just the first game of the series, or maybe the bigger news after this game was Giannis's injury, or probably it wasn't really a game-winning tip-in. Nonetheless, this shot is something to be talked about more when it comes to easily forgotten big shots, especially when we consider it just happened recently. How about we talk about a Milwaukee Bucks winning shot after putting them in the picture for 2 straight series now? And this is some of the deeper cuts. A buzzer beater that probably only real hoopers remember. Well, can you still remember that Jared Bayless lay-in versus the Bulls in the first round of the 2015 playoffs? It's this type of play that screams just how a trailing team refuses to give up a sweep. And after this game-winning layup in the face of D. Rose, the Milwaukee Bucks even managed to win another one. However, I can't blame you if you can't remember this at all. I will not even blame you if you can no longer remember the face of Jared Bayless. This series is not really that competitive in retrospect. Since we're already in the zone of mentioning random players making game-winning layups in the playoffs, how about we dig some old-school clip back in the late 80s for an even deeper cut with this Derek McKey series-clinching buzzer beater versus the Rockets in the Western Conference first round of the 1989 playoffs. And if we're just talking about lay-ins, tip-ins, putbacks, and high-level near-the-rim action, we can't not mention one of the most historically altering last-second tip-ins, the Ralph Sampson over Kareem Abdul-Jabbar miracle shot in the 1986 Western Conference Finals. Though not really forgotten or highly likely to be forgotten in the future like the prior clips I mentioned, I just think this one's not really getting the level of respect that it should have. And I don't know if this was because there were just so many storylines during the 1986 playoffs, along with this run by the Rockets, like Michael Jordan setting the Boston Garden on fire for 63 points, and their double overtime in the same series. Or maybe the NBA was just so resolved to have the Celtics and the Lakers in the finals that they don't know how to pivot after this shot happened. Or maybe this shot didn't really change much of Houston Rockets' fortune, and instead of an iconic winning moment for the franchise, it just leaves us with much more to wonder about and even a degree of sadness for the varying degrees of what-ifs. You see, this run to the finals is Ralph Sampson's final healthy playoff run, because the next season he would tear a major cartilage in his left knee, an injury that started a series of injuries that would derail his career. Even a bit more painful is he actually forced himself to play in this postseason after suffering a freak injury in March of the same year in a regular season game against the Celtics. Nevertheless, this shot was as iconic as it gets. Since that was a bit somber, how about we go all the way back to 1970 and talk about the 60-foot buzzer beater from the logo, Jerry West, to send Game 3 of the finals to overtime. Now, you probably know or may not know this clip, but even if you had seen this before, you might not know that the Lakers actually lost this game, 111-108. Yeah, I know. If Jerry West could have just hit the same shots versus the same team under the same circumstances much more recently, we could have had more drama. Instead, well, it is what it is. Speaking of long-range buzzer beaters, how about Chauncey Billups' half-court Hail Mary to force overtime in the Eastern Conference Finals back in 2004? What makes this a bit forgettable, though, is they actually lost this game. But not for nothing. This game actually reached triple overtime. What a terrain to traverse for the eventual NBA champions, right? At least Mr. Big Shot gets to win a championship a few days after this shot. Not so much for Kyle Lowry, who also had a half-court buzzer beater 12 years after, as he sent the Raptors in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Semis in 2016 to overtime, but to then lose to the Heat. Just some quick hitters before I end. There's a Dudley Bradley, almost a travel three-point shot in Game 1 of the first round of the Eastern Conference in 1986, as the Sixers escaped the Washington Bullets. Also, did you know that Michael Jordan had a shot 2.0 versus the Cavaliers in the 1993 playoffs, where he takes and makes almost the same shot from almost the same point of the court? How about the Mike Bibby steal that led to Kevin Martin's transition buzzer-beating layup, to avoid getting swept by the defending champion San Antonio Spurs in the first round of the 2006 playoffs. Man, in this life filled with uncertainties, it's good to be reminded that a buzzer beater of hope, even in the unlikeliest of conditions, can happen. The NBA's 70-plus-year-old legacy of unbelievable basketball is brimming with that. I'm just glad to share it with you. But how about you? What do you think are the most forgotten buzzer beaters in NBA history that deserve more love? For more basketball content, like and subscribe for more.